While this may look like a normal high school, it is actually the location of one of the most famous and impactful events of the Civil Rights Movement. This building holds the story of the Little Rock Nine and their role in ending school segregation in the United States. Let's go back to the 1950s. The United States was going through a time of great change, and more than ever before, people were fighting for their right to be treated as equal citizens through peaceful protests. Schools were still segregated into white and black schools, using the justification that schools were separate but equal. But black citizens knew that separate would never truly be equal. Because of this innate inequality, they began to fight for their children to have the same right to the same education as all white students received, in the same schools, with the same teachers and same resources. Gradually, their fighting began to work. In 1954, as a result of the famous Brown versus Board of Education case, the United States Supreme Court ruled that separate educational facilities were inherently unequal, and the segregation of public schools officially became illegal. Though segregation was deemed unconstitutional, there was no real plan for how the federal government would enforce this new law. The only guideline was for states to desegregate with all deliberate speed. As a result of these unclear plans, segregated schools did not react to these new laws and still refused to allow black students to enroll in the white schools. The NAACP, or National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, assisted many students in plans to register at these schools in an attempt to force the anti-segregation law. The most famous group of students came from the unexpected town of Little Rock, Arkansas, at Little Rock Central High. By 1957, the NAACP had already registered 9 students from the local segregated high school, Horace Mann, to integrate the local white school, Little Rock Central High. The 9 students were chosen based on superior grades, attendance, and the belief that they could stay strong through all of the adversity that was to come. The students were Ernest Green, Elizabeth Eckford, Jefferson Thomas, Terrence Roberts, Carlotta Walls, Minnie Jean Brown, Gloria Ray, Thelma Mothershed, and Melba Patillo. The group was led by the famous NAACP leader and civil rights activist, Daisy Bates. As the plan developed, the students began to be referred to as the Little Rock Nine. On September 4, 1957, the students were scheduled to officially enter the school and begin the integration process. The Little Rock Nine and Daisy Bates planned to meet at a location and all walk to the school together for the sake of safety, since protests were already gathering near the school. However, only 8 of the 9 were able to meet beforehand. This left one student, Elizabeth Eckford, to walk through the crowd of angry anti-integration protesters alone. As she walked towards the school, mobs of furious white students and parents crowded around her, yelled at her, and threatened her life. Elizabeth Eckford kept a brave face and continued moving forward, but eventually had to get on a bus to escape the angry crowd. Elizabeth Eckford's bravery through this traumatizing experience resulted in one of the most famous pictures of the entire civil rights movement. While Elizabeth Eckford walked alone, the other 8 students made their way together through the angry crowds. As they got close to the school, however, the students realized they were completely blocked from the door and unable to enter. Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus had sent the National Guard to block the students from entering, completely preventing the students from integrating the school that day. This act by Governor Faubus was actually illegal and unconstitutional, and this gained the incident, the city, and the Little Rock Nine national attention, including from President Dwight D. Eisenhower. In response to the events of September 4th, President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne Division of the United States Army to escort the 9 students into the high school. The students were finally and officially allowed into the school on September 24th, and the school officially began the integration process. This intervention of President Eisenhower and the United States Army marked a very significant moment in United States history. It was the first time the federal government took action and forced the integration of a public school.